Hello, welcome to AI in Action. My name is Maurie, and I'm here with my husband Jim. We are here for episode 24, and we are going to talk a little bit about what happened in 2023 and specifically concerning artificial intelligence and what might happen in 2024. And then, of course, what we think needs to happen. So, the next couple of episodes, we are going to be focusing on those things, and we're going to start with just randomness. We're just going to do some random stuff today. We're going to start with government and just regulations. So, the first thing that we want to talk about, of course, is the secure by design is what it's called. It's how they're trying to make AI secure. It's a nation's pledge that just happened. I think it was signed by like 18 different nations. It was an agreement, basically came out of the United States and the UK. And it's about cybersecurity and just, what are we going to do with AI in the future? Where's it going to go? What are we going to allow? So, Jim, what do you think about this? It's by AI Business. What do you think about this new agreement that was just signed?
Well, it has no legal foundations. It's a start. I mean, when you think about what you can do with it, somebody's got to put together a framework. And you and I have talked many times about how Europe has kind of been
The
leading.
leader.
And you notice most of these 18 nations, if not all of them, were European nations.
Yes.
They talk a lot about not just security, but they're really focused on privacy. They're
Mhm.
focused on safe AI integration, safe AI. And I don't disagree with them. I think the idea of making a framework is probably better than the government actually making a decision and trying to pass laws.
Right.
Because that really, what's that saying? We're the government, we're here to help you. Yeah. So I think it's a good start. I think the fact that 18 nations, include, like you said, the US and the UK were kind of the founders.
No, Germany and some other ones.
Germany, I saw Germany and Poland, and I don't think China was in there, and I seriously doubt Russia was in there. But at least there's a group of people trying to figure out how to use this stuff safely.
I'm just
Um,
glad they're talking about it.
they should talk about it. We don't know enough about it to know the idea that you can regulate something we haven't even invented yet.
Hmm.
There was a talk the other day, which we'll talk more about in a second, that I watched, and the guy was talking about, they said that airplanes were unsafe, but they didn't try to regulate airplanes initially because they didn't know exactly how to regulate something that hadn't been invented yet. Even the new engines, when they talked about jet engines, everybody was like, they're going to be unsafe, they're going to be unsafe, but you can't really say that until you actually build it and do
Right.
some tests on it. So if
Right.
the government gets involved too early, you can end up not building anything
Correct.
because they're trying to keep something from happening that they don't even know if it actually is going to happen. So anyway, it's a good start. The next thing I thought was interesting was this is not really AI, but it kind of is because you and I talked a lot about Adobe, and Adobe, we
Big
think
guys.
they're the big boys. And when it comes to images and
Yes.
image generation, they have so much data. I mean,
Yes.
how could you beat Adobe, right? Well, Figma, as I understand it, I haven't used it, but our daughter has.
Right. It's for like user interfaces.
That's what Rachel used it for. And they were going to merge, and they're both got AI built into them already. They were going to merge.
It's like
It
a
was a
$20 billion
Yeah, it was a
deal.
big one. Well, the regulatory headwinds, as they called it in Europe, I have to wonder if the regulatory headwinds weren't just because of the size of the companies, but also the AI component. I don't know if that's true or not, that the AI had something to do with it, but I wouldn't be surprised.
But I mean, it's one of the things that they would have been huge. I mean, it would have
Yeah.
made the company so big.
They would have controlled a lot of
They would have
information.
controlled way too much.
And maybe that's not a bad thing when
Yeah.
you start thinking about it, because you have Google, and you have to wonder.
Here are dogs in the
Sorry,
background.
we have dogs. So anyway, I thought that was interesting.
It's probably a delivery.
The next thing I thought was interesting from a government regulation perspective was Meta. Meta's they seem to be the ones that are fighting for open source.
Which is kind of weird considering that Meta
It's
is
Facebook.
so large. Yeah.
Well, and while Microsoft wants to regulate, Google wants to regulate, OpenAI wants to regulate, which basically is Microsoft. I think what I found interesting, again, back to that talk that I saw the other day, was an interview. I think it was on CBS News, kind of an AI wrap up for the year thing. And the guy they were interviewing, one of the pioneers, I don't remember what his name was, but he's one of the pioneers of
OpenAI.
He works for Meta, but he said he wouldn't work for any company unless they were into open source. I mean,
Right.
he's an employee of Meta, and he's been in AI since '80s, so
Okay.
he's really been there a long time. But he said the problem with it is that if you don't have open source, Google, Microsoft, and those guys are going to control all of it.
Well, the little guy's gone out. No,
Yeah,
you cannot compete.
you have no shot because the money required to get something certified may be small at first. The government's going to promise, it'll be easy, but you know how that
Right.
works. I mean,
The nickel and dime you to death.
the regulatory stuff is they're going to start out nickel and dime you, then they're going to get to the big bucks. And
Right.
basically, if they're going to regulate it to the point where unless you have a whole team of people who do nothing other than deal with the regulatory stuff, you're not going to be able to get out anything. And he thinks, and I agree with him, he thinks that without open source, that the control of not just these people are already in control of a lot of information.
Yes,
Think
they
about
are.
what Microsoft and Google
Yes.
and these people have, and Apple. Now think about them with generative AI as well, to where they've got all these learning models that it's too much. I agree with the guy, and I think that open source is important, and we'll talk even more about that in a second.
Okay. Next
I thought you'd
thing,
like this one.
we're going to switch over to education. CNN Business, specifically, they did an article. It was about Stanford research. And the Stanford research found that ChatGPT, I want to make sure teachers are listening, ChatGPT did not increase cheating in high schools.
Not according to their surveys. Of course,
Excuse
surveys,
me.
they can only be so accurate. But I thought it was interesting about
Cheater's going to cheat.
cheaters going to cheat. It's basically what I read into this. Cheaters going to cheat. It didn't increase the number of people cheating. It just changed.
Right. They just used a different tool. If a student's going to cheat, I remember we were presenting to a group of teachers and I said, well, how do you know if a student's cheating right now? And the lady was like, well, it was very simple. You just see them looking off the other student's paper. Okay. That's how you catch them.
Well, you used to.
That's how you used to. Then it was because the source wasn't valid or whatever. They were going to the internet. They were copying and pasting. They were taking stuff out of articles that already been,
detectors.
And the detectors got out there to where they would actually, they would go scrape the web. If it had more than a paragraph that was copied and pasted directly from some website, it would be able to tell you.
Yep.
So they cheated then. Now ChatGPT, honestly, I think that ChatGPT is probably making them learn a little more because they're having to be smarter in how they're cheating. They're not able to just copy and paste somebody else's work. They have to actually put in the prompt. They have to, generate the prompt. They have to generate the paper. They have, I don't know. It's a totally different tool, but cheaters are going to cheat.
I thought you would find this particular sentence interesting. The students believe the tool should be allowed for starter purposes. Again, we talk about this with assignments. It's a great brainstorming tool for generating. Everyone who's ever written anything has writer's block, right?
Absolutely.
And so when you think about writer's block and you think about using this as a way of getting past that, it's a great tool for that.
Give me 10 things I need to cover when I'm writing a paper on World War II.
That's correct.
And then you have a place to go.
I agree. So I think that it kind of verified what you and I have been talking about in terms of what we felt like. Again, you look at the study, the fears over the cheating was escalating. People thought it was going to be worse. They were going to ban students from using it.
Well, like New York, in New York City, they immediately said it. In Seattle, they're like, nope, we're going to ban students from using it. We're going to ban teachers from using it.
But then they stopped.
New
York
did. They stopped. They said, okay, nowadays, more schools are even encouraging it that, okay, we need to teach students how to use it, how to best use the tool. Universities are doing that.
Yes.
So it is a great tool. It would be very, very sad if you didn't allow a student to use it.
Well, and you didn't teach them. You talk about it again. I keep mentioning
digital
our discussions. You talk about digital literacy all the time because you used to teach digital literacy.
Yes.
And you know that if you don't teach them how to use it, they're just going to use it badly.
Well, I will stand by what I have said in several different podcasts. If you are a student and you are not using it as a tool, you are not going to be competitive against your peers.
What is the saying that guy said, I think from Harvard? AI is not going to replace people.
It's going to replace people
who don't use AI. People who use AI are going to replace people who do not.
Correct.
And I think that's very interesting. So anyway, we're going to switch gears. Okay. We're going to go to, I call it business, but it's kind of more like reporting the news
This was
type of
freaky.
business. Yeah, I still don't clear. You've watched it. I've watched it. I don't know if these people that on this, it's called, go ahead.
You can 100% tell that the mouth area is AI generated. And
I
the
don't
reason
know.
I know that is because when I did the translation using HeyGen and I translated a video of myself into a different language, you could tell that my mouth area was no longer my actual mouth
But they're speaking
area.
English. So they're not translating to another language.
Doesn't matter.
We're talking about channel1.ai. They're basically saying,
You should go look at it. Channel1.ai.
they're basically saying,
And that's
this is
one,
my
the
cynical,
numeral one, not spelled
yes,
out.
this is my cynical view of it. I think this is nothing other than a way to try to replace news anchors.
Reporters.
I mean,
But,
there's
well, the people in front
the
of the
news
camera.
anchors, not
Mhm.
not the reporters, but the news anchors, and that's how they're pushing this. Is that it's still going to be the news,
Mhm.
but the reporters are going to be there and all that other stuff. But the news anchors, which we know those are probably expensive,
Mhm.
the news anchors, which I think is what reporters kind of, I mean,
They want to be
they
that.
want to be that eventually. They get
Right.
tired of being out in the field, at
Right.
least some of them do. So they strive to become a news anchor because it's a more stable thing that they can
Right. And it
do.
makes more money.
Well, they're talking about getting rid of news
News
anchors.
anchors.
That's my read on this. Is they want to get rid of news anchors. Now they're going to push it as well. We have a news anchor that can speak 15 languages because they're AI generated, and as you said,
Yeah. Only the
it
mouth
it
changed.
only the mouth changed. So maybe that's true. Maybe it's not going to be the live news. Maybe
Well,
it's only going to be
I
the
could
recorded
pick
news.
basically pick an avatar also. I
Yeah,
mean, if this is AI, if every bit of this person I'm looking at her on the screen and that is AI generated, I could say I want my news anchor to be male, I want them to be female, I want them to be Daffy Duck, I
I
want them
want
to
them to
be,
be beautiful. I want them to have
whatever.
perfect,
And so
whatever.
they're
Yes,
saying it's going to give you more control over the news that you're viewing
and it's all about the money.
and 100% about the money.
Yes,
Almost everything we talk about,
I know, but
well, it comes right down to it.
it's so hard not to be cynical when you look at this and they try to make it sound so upbeat, like they're doing this wonderful thing. I I thought this was a joke when I saw. I'm still not convinced it's real because, but I mean, you and I have seen it. We've used these generating tools for translating languages and stuff, and there's even now I've read about a avatar that looks like a very attractive female that's got like a million followers,
Oh, that's
and
been
she's
out. That's
AI
been a while.
based.
That's been out.
Right.
That's
We
been on
talked about that.
Instagram for a
We
while.
talked
Yeah.
about that. So if that's possible, I don't suppose this would be any less
That's
possible,
very
right? It's
possible.
just a little creepy. I
So
don't know.
it's channel one AI and it's the number one, not spelled out one.
Yes,
So
go check it out and see what you think. So this is what I think is this is probably a good thing. I've never heard of Axel Springer, but I'm assuming that is the name of a company. It's a
okay.
publishing house, is what they say.
Okay.
And they're partnering with OpenAI to deepen beneficial use of AI in journalism. I think that translates to make sure that they get paid
Mm-hmm.
when AI uses their information. I don't think it actually has a lot to do with anything. There, I don't know how that's going to strengthen independent journalism.
Well, it says that with the partnership that ChatGPT users around the world will receive summaries of selected global news content from Axel Springer's media brands, including Politico and Business Insider. So to me, you take this partnership between Axel Springer and OpenAI, you throw in channel1.ai, and I'm going to take all these summaries and I'm going to feed it to my AI generated news anchor, and they're going to read me all the summaries that are coming from Politico, Business Insider, or whatever ones I want to
Which
hear the
doesn't
news from.
necessarily encourage independent journalism because the only people going to make money at that are the people that top.
But
It's going to reduce the value, the cost. These independent journalists that are trying to make money, it's going. I guarantee you, it's going to. They're going to try to commoditize the independent, which they're already doing, I guess,
yeah,
with
they are.
Google.
They are.
But
Everything's behind a paywall.
I also think it's an opportunity for. I think there is a place for this to help independent journalism. I think I mentioned this when I was talking to you earlier about it, and I was talking to Jared about it. When you and I used to go to the checkout stand at like Walmart when we were
Mm-hmm.
younger,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even now, but definitely when we were younger, there was a whole thing of the National Enquirer, the National Examiner. And when I was a kid, my grandmother read the National Enquirer, but we all thought it was a joke. I mean, it was
Yes.
always aliens on the front page. And they even used it in that movie,
Yes.
Men in Black. They talked about
Yes.
it being the real
The
news about
real news.
aliens, right? It was
Hmm.
a joke. Well, and then there was the other ones that you didn't buy on the newsstands. And that there was the U.S. News and World Report, I think it was, or no, USA Today was kind of the close to, but not
Yeah.
quite. But then you had the Wall Street Journal, you had the New York Times, which you still have. And I think there's an opportunity for those people to be kind of the grounding truth for what you see, because there's so much fake out there. More and more of it's going to become fake. Somebody's got to be, just like when we wanted the real news. You got me a subscription one Christmas to the Wall Street Journal
Hmm.
because I wanted to read financial news and I wanted to read the news. And it was a trusted news source. You didn't give me a subscription to the National Enquirer
Correct.
because it wasn't considered a viable news source back then. Maybe
Correct.
that's where this goes.
Is that the ones that you pick from, you can pick like a 5-star rating or a 4-star rating or a
Exactly.
2-star rating, or
It's rated like a hotel.
yeah,
It's a nice
exactly.
hotel because it's got the
It's
ratings.
trusted.
It's a trusted source.
The 5-star have actual journalists that are writing these
Exactly.
articles.
Maybe
Yeah.
we should start our own news media. Maybe we got, because they don't. I don't see them talking about that
Yeah, I don't
as an
know.
opportunity. It's always taught, just like the cheating thing. It was always, we always started out with cheating because that's where everyone wanted to start, which was the negative. And we told them yes, but, and we always tried to show them where you can turn it positive. Maybe there's an opportunity there as well. So anyway, moving on. Now we're going to move to what's coming,
Okay.
and we're going to talk about that on this one and the next one. And this one is interesting because the glasses that Meta's had out for a while.
The smart
Right now, the
glasses.
smart glasses, the Ray Bans,
Hmm.
you can hear yourself and you can talk to the ad, stuff like that.
Answer phone calls from it, stuff like that.
Exactly. Well, now they added they're adding I think they already released it. They're
Yeah, it
adding
has a camera. Hmm.
and Google tried that. And
People didn't like it.
if I'm looking at you and I have a camera on my glasses, it wasn't the AI that made people uncomfortable because it didn't really have AI.
Well,
It was the fact that I didn't know if you were streaming me on your website while we were having a
well, and you have to
conversation.
kind of wonder, okay, what exactly? What are they going to do with that video? Are they actually videoing it? What can they actually see?
Yeah.
What? Because there's some cameras out
Remember
there
that
that
cameras that they
supposedly
took off
can
the
see
market
through clothing
because it
and
was
stuff.
infrared, and the infrared they had to
Hmm.
change the infrared
Yes.
emitters on them because they could
Yes.
see through clothing. So
Yes.
you start wondering. So I think this is a cool idea. I just don't know if people are going to like it.
I
I
I
think the
don't
people
either.
wearing them will like it because you can look at something and say, "What is
Honestly,
that?" But
I
I don't know about the people being looked at.
honestly I think I would be dizzy if I put that on. If I put,
If you could see the image
if
it
you
was
can see
seeing,
the image
I
that
don't
it's
think you can see the
seeing
image it's seeing though. You probably could on your phone, but
or some,
I don't
I
think
don't
it's
know.
projecting onto the glasses. I think it's literally video. I think the video is streaming through your phone.
But then you can ask it, what am I looking at?
Yes.
Or,
Yes.
yeah.
So anyway, interesting. I think as we move across through the different articles that I've looked at, this one is another one. I think this is, again, we're talking about what's coming.
Hmm.
And we just talked about Meta. Now we're talking about, in this case, it's a material sciences kind of thing from kimeurope.com. But they're talking about, I'll let you read the headline.
Breakthroughs. Breakthroughs for describing soft matter through AI.
I
Now,
don't know what soft matter is.
soft matter.
Is that like a sponge? I don't know what soft matter. Do you know what soft matter is?
It's a combination of essentially simple basic techniques that's opened a new chapter in density functional theory.
It sounds important.
It does sound important.
So the point for us is that it's studying liquid and soft matter using AI. So that's the sentence, but that doesn't really tell me exactly what it is. I just think we're going to see more of this, which is AI being used as a tool to help you make discoveries. I mean, Google recently announced something like 2 million new potential crystal formations that an AI was proposing.
Things that we had no earthly idea were there.
Well, because it can do nothing but focus on that.
Think of it like the Hubble telescope.
What about it?
You
I
go,
love the Hubble telescope.
we put the Hubble telescope out there to see things we have never seen before.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And AI is helping us study things
See patterns
and see the patterns for things
hadn't
that
seen
we have
before.
never seen before.
It's very true. Which leads us to this one. I thought you'd like, because you like medical stuff, so I thought you'd like this.
ABSI
I can't pronounce either one
and
of those.
AstraZeneca.
Zeneca?
That one sounds really familiar. It's an AI partnership to discover cancer treatments.
Yeah, so basically these two
Large research companies for
they're
cancer.
looking for generative AI antibody discoveries. ABSCA is a front runner in generative AI antibody discoveries, and they've partnered with
Suitical.
biopharmaceutical giant. That's where you've heard of it,
AstraZeneca.
AstraZeneca, to
Hmm.
leverage AI in the quest for novel cancer treatments. Again, I think this is a big deal. I think it's for exact reason you just mentioned, which was about it's seeing patterns that we may not recognize.
Right.
Even if it's wrong, having a list of places to look. I mean, it's like that you mentioned earlier about people using it as a brainstorming tool.
Yes.
To me, it's almost like a brainstorming tool. If you're stuck and you're trying to figure out what was that, it was a movie with Sean Connery where he had found this weird thing with these ants that was a cure for cancer in
I know
this
what you're talking
jungle,
about.
but then he
Hmm.
couldn't figure out how he couldn't
How?
find it. He
Yeah.
lost
What?
it.
What was it?
What
What was
was
it
it?
that was
And
causing that
basically,
to
what he was
happen?
doing was spending all his time in the jungle trying to test. He had a little test lab set up.
Hmm.
He was testing all these different chemicals or things that he found to see if they had the properties he was looking for.
Right.
That's what to me, that's what this I think
Well,
about.
it talks about the potential to improve the lives of cancer patients. I mean, if you're a cancer patient, the AI has to be very exciting for you right now.
Yes, yes. We've both had people we know and love that have passed away from cancer. I had one about 10 years ago that was a friend of mine. And I have to wonder if we'd have had the AI we have now,
Yeah.
if there would have been, when Steve Jobs died from the same form of cancer, just pancreatic cancer. Steve Jobs said he thought his generation would be the last generation to ever die from that disease. And I'm hoping AI is one of those things that's going to help us figure that out.
I agree.
Cancer's horrible.
I agree.
Anyway, switching to a different, same kind of idea, but a different kind of area, which is agribusiness.
Crop protection solutions. There are a lot of crops right now that are in danger.
They are, and the problem we have is that we can't keep spraying pesticides on everything. So what I'm hoping that they're doing when they're talking about protection, and I didn't get through the whole article, but I'm hoping they're talking about how can we, my grandmother was, I call her the prototype for the modern,
Yeah.
gardener, because she was really good at planting things that were like she plant this like marigolds because it brought in ladybugs, and
Hmm.
ladybugs ate aphids, which was so she had
She
instinctively
thought
over
about the food
time,
web the whole
and she
time.
always told me that I don't like spraying things on my crops that kill bugs, because if it's bad for bugs, it's probably bad for me.
Correct.
And this is, my grandmother was born in 1917, so I
Right.
mean this was a long time before people thought about organic gardening probably, but for them a lot of it was cost. They couldn't afford the pesticides that they were using because she grew up in a small farming community
Hmm.
and near here and that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. So yeah, I'm hoping that AI is going to be better at controlling pests and diseases without using pesticides to do it.
Burn it all down.
Well, remember that one movie we saw with Tom Selleck, and they had the little robots that drove through the field, and they would pick off the
The little
corn.
bugs
They'd pick
too.
the corn, the little worms off the
Yeah.
corn, and they had a little blender looking
And they
thing
would
on the
like
back,
put
and
them
they
in
drop it
there.
back there, and it would
Hmm.
squish the bug. That doesn't sound very practical because
But
it's
it
going
can,
to take a little
but
lot
it
of
can
little
happen now. I see
potentially.
stuff like that now
Yes.
in large fields where they're going through and they're cutting the crops and they're
Hmm.
using a machinery and
Hopefully,
vision technology and everything else to do
maybe
stuff.
that's how they're going to get rid of bugs instead of spraying more pesticide. The pesticide companies might not be happy about that, but I think
You
those of
know,
us eating the food
but
will be.
you and that's the situation that I think that we end up running into a lot in the world that we live in, since it is financially driven. The ones who are going to lose the most money, they scream the loudest, and innovation doesn't happen like it should.
Yeah, well, and that's the kind of the people that are trying to lock down their AI stuff now. They want everybody else to not have the opportunity because they've invested so much money in it, and they don't want somebody to learn from all of that and then do something. Their biggest fear is what I'm about to talk about. Is that we're going to talk about these models that are coming, that are small models that are very very good. Instead of using one massive, I don't think the need for the big models is going to go away.
No.
But I think when we start talking about 2024, we start talking about how do we do things that we can teach an AI to do just what we want to do. How many, you and I work at this school, we see this all the time. How many times do we find a tool that would be great if it just,
Oh,
fill in the blank?
oh, yeah. I mean, everything you end up in a school system, because you can't make a lot of money in school systems. You
So you
end up
adapt it.
buying a package that's like meant for corporate America, like your security packages or your
Hmm.
door controls,
Yep. And it's
and then
never
all of a
quite right.
sudden you're adapting it or trying to, I call it Aggie engineering because of your little
Yeah.
A&M graduate thing, to try to make it work
The way
in
you
your
want it to work.
environment.
Square peg in a round hole.
Absolutely.
Think about your point of sale system you created when we had our restaurant and you
Yes.
spent hours and hours and hours customizing it. Well, I think that idea of what you did when you bought that point of sale software and you customize it, I think there's a huge market coming for these small AIs running to where
Locally
you think
even.
about it, the concept already exists. You've got this kind of router virtual assistant. I
Hmm.
call it a router AI. And
Hmm.
its job is to find the right agent. Just like if you had a really good assistant in your office,
Hmm.
and that assistant, you said, hey, can you book me a flight or can you do whatever? That assistant knows who to call. They know
Hmm.
who, how to, what flights, and they know about you. They know, like me, I want an aisle seat. I don't want to sit by the window, or some people like the window. My point is that these smaller, finely tuned agents that are an AI all in themselves. They're like a 7 billion model. It's exactly what Jared and I are working on right now.
Yes.
We're building Jared wants a nutrition coach, an
Okay.
AI that knows him and it knows his preferences. Because think about it, you go to one of these websites, there's all kinds of AI based nutrition coaches.
Right.
You get in there and you've got to enter all this information for one thing. It's very personal information.
Yes, it
You've got to
is.
enter lots of it. And that company may or may not be there tomorrow, but you're going to spend how much time tuning that thing to try to get it to understand what your needs are. And then you're probably not going to use it very long. Why? Because you're going to wake up on Wednesday and
Yeah.
you've got your whole meal plan for every day. And you're going to wake up on Wednesday and you're not going to want that meal.
No, no. You're not going to have that ingredient that's a key ingredient for that meal that you need to be eating, and your local grocery store is not going to carry that ingredient.
Yeah. And you say that, and that's what everybody says. And then, but in reality, I've seen this with you many times where you'll wake up and you'll go, I'm just not in the
Ah,
mood
it's
for
not in the
that.
mood for that.
Or I don't even want breakfast,
Right.
or I don't, I wait, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go make you this. And you go, no, I want cereal
Can I
today.
have a bowl of cereal?
And so when you think about having an AI that is tuned specifically, taught to what your needs are, what your preferences are, think about how picky I am as an eater. You're not very picky. You would eat,
But you talk about training it for just, it could also be trained knowing I live in Llano, Texas.
yeah.
And
You're,
so I mean, I was looking for a spice. I was in Austin yesterday and I wanted to make a Mediterranean dish. And there's
mhm.
a brand new spice that I had to put in this Mediterranean dish. I could not find it. It took me forever to find it at a really, really large HEB
In
in
Lando,
Austin.
zero chance.
And then I paid $17 for a bottle of spice. It's like,
And then you dump too much of it in the first thing, and you
yeah,
had to pour
I
some
had to
of it
pour it
out.
out. I was like, oh my God, they went 10 pennies down the drain,
10 pennies, more like a buck and a
like a
half.
buck and a half. But I would never be able to find something like that here locally. So then
So
you have to just really, really,
you got
really
to wonder
plan
if your
ahead.
AI could, if our local little stores got smart and they let my AI, in other words, basically I signed up to have
Right,
access
to know
to
what
their
their
data,
inventory
to know
was.
what their data is, and then the AI could
Build
help
my
me build
menu.
around local shopping. And there's a
Yeah.
whole bunch of opportunities here for people to take these things. And I always go back to your point of sale system because I sat there and watched you for hours providing absolutely no value whatsoever than reading menus to you,
Mm-hmm.
where you were sitting there setting up our point of sale system.
Right.
You had to set up not only the menus, but you had to get all the details and the look and feel. But there are people who get paid. That's what they do.
A lot of money.
Those people could make money building me a custom AI. I think I might make money doing this. Maybe I'll do custom AIs for people.
Aren't you already doing that?
Well, I'm doing one for the school, but
But we're willing to do it for other
that's true. We
schools.
are we're willing to do it for other schools, and that's where. By the way, that's where this is going because the one Jared's working on his thing, but I want one that I'm going to work on for the school because I want an agent that does nothing other than very specific things, and then I want the routing. Agnes is what we call it. Agnes
Right.
can ask these agents
Right.
to
I
then
mean,
I need you
Agnes
to do
already
this.
exists. We already have
Agnes already
elementary and stuff
exists.
on it.
I
Yeah.
just want to put that agent model in place with Agnes instead of it just using the large language model. We're going to run out of time.
All right.
I could go. Let's talk about this a little bit more later, but
Sounds good.
I really like these personalized AIs.
All right. We'll see where that goes. Maybe we'll talk about that next time. So thank you guys for listening. This is Maurie with my husband, Jim. We are AI in Action, exploring tomorrow's tech today. Have a great rest of the week.